For exercise 6, let's see how we would deal with this assignment. So I already have a project EX6, so we'll call this EX6A. If you don't have any customer specific or company specific settings, don't forget to quickly have a look in your input. Make sure it's imperial if you need it to be imperial, or else you just leave it on metric. Press new. And we'll start again with the grid. So we'll have 20.5 feet. Axis 1 will be sufficient. Then we have 16 feet 4, comma, twice 20.5 feet, comma, 16 feet 4. Enter, and the preview will update. There again, one axis name is enough. And the various elevations, which will be 13 feet, comma, 6.5, or 20 feet, 6 inches. Okay, and I would like to start with row A, and first thing I would like to get a perspective, isometry at a specific scale with a new window. There we go. Not a big fan of the hatching, so that's the first thing I will remove. If you don't mind having it there just to see where your 2D view is located at, feel free to keep it, but I will remove it for now. First thing I will create will be the columns. So column indeed. That will be a W12 by 79. Can change the steel grade if we want to. And if I place this in the 3D environment, we can see this time it's oriented properly, so I can just go ahead and create the various columns. Right click to call up the setting box. These are now rafters. I say that's a 12 by 35. Perhaps we want to change the representation to this. And the reference view will be top. Center top will be the creation reference, and 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So there we already have the columns and the rafters. Now the intermediate columns, I'll need some references for that. I will go to points, divide line. How many intermediate points? 2. 1 and 2, 1 and 2. I would like the columns, intermediate columns, to go all the way to the rafter, and for that, points, intersection, 2 points creating one line, 2 points creating the other line, 2 points creating one line, 2 points creating the other line. Members, create profile, will be the same profile but with the naming column. Centered, we're still looking at top if I create them in this view anyway. I would switch to the last row like this to do exactly the same thing. Points, divide line, over here, points, intersection between these two and these two, and go back to members and create the intermediate columns again. While I'm here, I might as well fit in that lintel or that intermediate beam. Points, parallel, 9 feet 8 inches, 1 and 2, so we have the references over there, and member create, let's call it beam. That will be an 8 by 13. We're looking at this from from a front perspective on the right side of the points 1 and 2. The other way, if you want to skip making the points, you can definitely also enter the offset over here, 9 feet 8 inches. That's the wrong way. So negative, it will go the other way. So then I'll go 1 and 2, and the beam will end up in the same location. So if you want to avoid making points, you can also, like this, create the beam with an offset. I could do that over here, for example, where I would say 8 feet 2 inches there, and the next one will be at 11 feet 5 inches. 1 and 2, there we are. If I want to check this, that will be 8 feet 2 inches, comma, 3 feet 2 inches. 1 and 2, there we see them. And if I want some visual checking, I can definitely add some dimensions in there. Y value relative 1, 2, 3 locations. Drag the dimension over here. If you think, well, the text is a bit small, of course, feel free to zoom in. That's one thing. But as we already know in the meantime, we could also change the scale a little bit. The text will become a bit bigger compared to the elements. In the next step, we can create some of the girts, and there's various ways to create the girts, or I go into this view, I set out either my offsets or my points, and I create the girts, but I have to consider the fact that I'm on the axis right now, so I'll be right in the middle of the column, and I would have to consider an offset. So then I would have to still know half the height of that column and give an offset and so on. The other possibility is to say, well, I will need to figure out an equal division anyway. I might as well work with a couple of snapping references. So I will points line intersection between the axis or the grid line and the side of the column, flange of the column, and the other grid line. So I have this for now. Points either parallel, since I would need them also on the other side, and I'm not going to use the copy functions yet. Line intersection, these two, and I would have points parallel. We need an offset of 10 inches from the top. So 1, 2, 10 inches, 1, 2, 10 inches. Could have used other functions, but this one works pretty well. And I would need 2 intermediate points. So we go to points, divide line. How many? 2 intermediate points between there and there, here and here. Next will be members, create profiles. I'll call this girt. It's a C8 by 11.5. Let's bring it back to the picking point, and I'll create these perpendicularly to my view. I will use the corner, the back corner of the girt. What length do we have? I will split them up later, or I can split them up later. This is more about profile creation. 73 feet 8 inches, so I'll say it is 73 feet 8 inches. It's away from me. I just need to find a rotation. 90 degree is the one we need. Then let's say there, enter, there, enter, there, enter, and there. And for the other side, we'll simply switch the anchor point there, 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 and there, enter. As for the bracings, I'll need to switch view, no choice. So I'll go to axis 1. And in axis 1, I'll create those bracings. So member, create profile, come back to the 2-point mode, bracing. The angle might be in the list, it is. And first thing I'm going to do is say I'm in front view, place it at the center for now, and give a tiny offset of 3 inches at 3/16 to later on accommodate a 3/8 thick gusset. So we'll create one bracing in front, right click, well actually might as well do the second one, there we go. And for the other bracing, I always take the exact opposite view, so front becomes rear, anchor point below becomes anchor point on top, and then these two nicely go along each other. I would have to do the same thing on the other side, axis 3, but watch out. This is row E, so we're looking from the inside towards the outside. I'll click this, press this little blue icon to flip the view. We're watching now from the outside, and my function, I have to call it up again. Bracing inside went from there to there, and there to there, while the one front was going from here and here. Last one I would like to add for now are the purlins. Now for the purlins, I could certainly go back to row A and work in here. All I need is again an equal division, divide line, this time with rest P1, P2. 5 feet will be the fixed intermediate distance between there and there, there and there. And from that moment on, I can go back to the function for the members. I'll create them once again perpendicular to my view. These are purlins. The W8 was already used, so I can just choose it from the list. No offset for this. No rotation for this. I'll keep the same length. Okay. Anchor point direction, anchor point direction, anchor point direction, and so on. There we are. And the final one is the roof bracing. For that, no choice. I have to make another view. I could take a secondary view, but it will be easier to just create a new view, since we might need the view later on for modeling, for the drawings, or whatever other purpose. Create. Slope 1. Okay. We're going from there to there to there. Enter. OK for the view, settings, and then we are in a proper location. And from there, we'll have an offset points, parallel, 10 inches at the top, 10 inches at the top, right click, 20 inches at the bottom, so from there to there, there to there. In between, we need a center, cut in half from this location to that location, from this location to that location. You see, I'm not zooming in specifically. I know that the software will snap to the nearest point. There's not many it can snap to anyway. So if I won't pick a little bit higher, or else it might pick the grid, I pick a bit lower than that 10-inch offset we just made. Members, create profile. Let's load the properties from this angle. Put ourselves again back in 2-point mode. If you see this happen, it can happen, but it's just a matter of calling up the box again. Maybe just a little graphical glitch with me. And we'll say the first bracing will be created with the last position we have here. Rear is fine. We give a little offset of 3/16. Now, if I create it now, 3/16 will be at the same plane as where we pick the points. That is not bad, but we will be on the top flange. Then I have to consider, what is this member? So we have this rafter. The rafter is a W12 by 35 that has a height of 12.5 inches. I would have to say minus 6.25 inches plus 3/16, and then we can already start with all kind of math. I could also say we'll create it like this, and then we'll move it, certainly. The other option, just in this case, would be to say I make a view from a member plane top only, and I want maximum extension. What's going to happen? We're going to use the reference axis by default. Yes, we could also say we are on the outside, but by default we're on the axis. So if I say we're on this rafter, close that one more time, and maximum extension not only show what is picked, I'll have a fully extended view. And in this fully extended view, I could also create the various components. If I switch on the grid, they'll be easier to see. Yes, I would quickly have to recreate the points, but that's quickly done. Points, or I could also show you points, copy. We have these various points. Enter, copy them over here, and they'll be brought over to this view. So members, the 3/16, we go here first. Right click, and then the opposite situation. That would be front. From there to there, here to here. Quickly check this, smart view, and I can see I'm nicely on the axis with a gap in between. All looks fine. I'll go back a couple of steps. The other option I had was to create this with an offset of, let's start thinking with 0, minus 6.5 inches. So we'd push it down and we'd have to take it back 3/16. So that would leave us with 5/16. And for the second one, it would be the opposite direction. So we start thinking again 6.5 offset, but I have to push it 3/16 further, so it would leave us with 11/16, 1, 2. If you make a mistake, see, if I make a mistake here, for example, no panic, just go back and immediately pick the proper points. No need to edit, no need to delete. Just go back one step and do it properly. So in here, I can see, again, perfect situation. We'll do that on the other side, and we're done with the exercise.